Hey y'all, hi. Yay, I'm so glad that I'm finally starting this video. It has been a journey. I basically had the hiccups for like 45 minutes leading up to this. I was putting on my makeup and hiccuping the entire time. And it was particularly bizarre because, you know, sometimes when you're putting on certain kinds of makeup, you have to have your mouth open. Like putting on mascara, I would be like, and then I'd be like a really loud hiccup because my mouth wasn't closed. And the whole time I was like, these hiccups better stop before I finish doing my makeup because I have a video to film, and they didn't. So I had to take some drastic measures, basically holding my breath and swallowing obsessively for like a minute straight. But they finally went away. And then there was a little excitement at the end of the journey, which is that I decided to wear these earrings. And this is the first time that I've ever worn them that's not a formal situation. I think of these as like my really fancy formal earrings, but this isn't really formal. I'm just wearing them. I am once again filming a video about new makeup releases, and once again, it's because I've been driven to it by my passion for discussing some of the things that have come out since I filmed the last one. So it's kind of good. It's like starting to pick up. I'm starting to get to the point where I'm filming this kind of video more often, but it's been a natural progression. So I like that for me, and I hope that you are enjoying it too. If this happens to be your first time clicking on one of my videos, hi, welcome. I'm so glad you're here. I'm Hannah. I love beautiful things, but I don't want to promote overspending here on my platform because I had a problem with that in the past. So I keep a balance here on my channel. I acknowledge that beauty adds value to a life, but that it's important to moderate. And if that kind of balance sounds good to you, I hope you'll subscribe to my channel. I upload pretty much every other day. Now, let's go ahead and get into the meat of this video. So I did spot a trend. I did organize the things a little bit. Sometimes I just go in no particular order. I mean, in general, my name is Hannah, and this is the year of going in no particular order. I feel like that's really sticking. Like that's one that's really sticking. But this came about very naturally. I was opening up windows of things I wanted to talk about. I was just going off of Trend Mood. So I'll try to remember to link Trend Mood down below, but that's pretty much what I do every time I film one of these. And a trend, I mean, it's not really a trend. It's just a very coincidental similarity between two brand new releases. And I always like to point that out because I get a kick out of it. I do like trend spotting. And that's the kind of thinking that I think can help us keep from overspending. At the very least, it keeps us from buying both of the things that are just the same as each other. But even more than that, even deeper than that, I think training ourselves to see the repetition and the similarities across different releases, that can encourage us to look at our own collections, look at what we have, instead of immediately feeling like we have to have this new thing just because we like it. Because in many cases, if you like it, then you already have something like it, because if you like it, it's your tastes. And so you've been buying things along the lines of your tastes before, you know the drill. Anyway, this one is also just remarkably similar and kind of comedic. This one's kind of humorous because of how similar it is. So the Huda Beauty the new Huda Beauty Obsessions palettes, which I have to say, I have kind of followed the career of these palettes with great interest because I feel like sometimes they're pretty boring, sometimes they're really beautiful. I am a person who enjoys seeing what kind of work artists and creatives come up with when they are under constraints. So sometimes those are artificially or industry imposed constraints, and sometimes they're self-imposed constraints, like you've chosen a certain form. That's the case here. This is a self-imposed constraint. They've chosen this 9-pan palette form. Did you catch that I meant to say 9 and I said 5? Like that's me, that's my brain these days, and also that's kind of me with numbers, like for my whole life. Really quick story. One of my mom's favorite stories about me when I was a little kid is that she was trying to teach me my I think it was probably just addition. Like I was really young, so it was, you know, the flashcards 3 plus 4, and she held it up and she was like, you know, what's 3 plus 4? And then I was supposed to say the answer. So we were doing it and I was kind of spacing out, and she held up one that had 5, you know, it was like 5 plus 2. And she was holding it up and she was like, Hannah, what's 5 plus 2? Hannah. And I was like spaced out. And then I said, 5 is such a proud number. And that's basically the beginning and the end of my relationship with numbers. So Huda Beauty has this self-imposed constraint, a 9-pan palette, and they're doing all of these manifestations of that. I feel like when it comes to performing, continuing to create exciting palettes with this constraint. It's been a bit hit or miss. I thought that the Neons collection was really great. It was a little bit ahead of its time and very attractive. The packaging, the swatches, everything. I heard that the formula was really bad on that, but you know, I'm just talking about like the way that it's presented. So I'm not saying that I think it was a great release. I'm just saying that I thought that that was an innovative way of handling this self-imposed constraint. So that kind of just general curiosity about what Huda is doing drew me in to look at this. And then there ended up being one in here that I really love, the khaki one. That sort of semi-grungy khaki one looks very, very beautiful. The other two look a little bit passé right now to me. But overall, I find this to be a pretty attractive situation. And I do think that it's going to do well. I think a lot of people are going to be into this. I think that what I was trying to say, like several clauses back, is that even though I'm following the career of this constraint and this brand with interest, I have never seen them release one where I was like, ooh, I kind of want that. Like part of me, there's this little part of me that wants stuff, even though I know I'm not going to let that part of me decide whether I buy stuff, right? That part of me, that little like disempowered, chattering part of me that's like, I want that, right? That part of me actually wants this khaki palette. And that just hasn't really happened with any of the Huda releases before. So that's of note. That's all my feelings about that. And then this Charlotte Tilbury, it just looks like, what is it? Bejeweled Eyes to Hypnotize. So it's just like another version of the Eyes to Hypnotize, the larger palette from Charlotte Tilbury. It basically looks like someone took that Huda trio, those three new Huda palettes, the Obsessions palettes, and made a Charlotte Tilbury Obsessions palette out of them. Like, they look freakily like they grew from the same tree. It's the exact same makeup. It's just in a different brand's packaging. And so I feel the same way about this as I do about the other, which is just that the khaki parts of it are kind of interesting to me. The purple parts feel a little bit passé. And there's a little part of me that's like, ooh, I kind of like that, because I do kind of like this murky coffee color. It's like creamy coffee colored color story mixed with sort of a slightly vibrant violet color story, like purple, orchid purple and violet color. Like I'm kind of into that. So it appeals to me, but you know, of course I'm definitely not going to buy this. I don't think I've ever tried Charlotte Tilbury's eyeshadows either. And I also actually feel like, in spite of having seen them reviewed up, down, and all around town, I don't really have a sense of whether her eyeshadow formula is good. I mean, I know it's not garbage because people really like her quads, but I don't have a sense of whether people are like I love Charlotte. I can say this. I never have seen someone being like, I absolutely love Charlotte Tilbury's eyeshadow formula. It's so, so good. I've just seen people like being like, I really love this quad, or I really love this palette. And so I've kind of gotten the sense that it's like passable and it works, but that there's nothing special about it. So yeah, this palette it's kind of a blip on the screen. But it reminded me, seeing that those two releases, the one from Huda and the one from Charlotte Tilbury, just seem like sisters to me, made me think of the Kaleidos one from the last time I filmed one of these videos. And I said about Kaleidos kind of the same thing that I said about the Huda palettes, which is like, you know, she's been coming out with all this makeup and I've kind of been like, nice, well done. But never has there been one that really caught my eye. And these new three Obsessions palettes kind of have caught my eye more. I feel like I identify with them more than I have with the ones in the past. And that's exactly what I said about this Kaleidos collection last time I filmed one of these videos. So I've decided to just throw it in here again to be like, yeah, this is sort of a continuation. They all had the same idea. All three of these brands had the same idea about what might be on trend right now and what might sell right now. It is kind of interesting. These sort of vibrant pastel purples and soft khakis going into the fall. I feel like it is groundbreaking for fall makeup because we usually see pumpkin colors and like vampy lips. And this is not that. This is like very fresh for fall trends to me. Okay, so that's the trend that I spotted and I wanted to get that out of the way first. And now the big guns are coming out. We're going to talk about the releases that have dropped since I filmed this before. There have been two that you guys are like, Hannah, when are you going to talk about these? One of them is the Natasha Denona Glam palette. Yeah, the I just can't not think of the mini glam, and so that makes me think that this should be called the maxi glam. And of course, when they introduced the big one first, it's just, you know, the tropics palette, and then when there's the mini one, then it's the mini version. But since they introduced the mini first, I feel like this should be called the maxi glam palette. But it's not. I don't know why, Natasha. So this actually dropped on the day that I released the other video, but it was the day after I had filmed it. So I didn't actually get to talk about it, but some of us chatted a bit about it in the comments. And I will say what I said after just having, all I had done at that point when I was chatting in those comments was look at the palette. I had just looked at like a picture of it and I had maybe seen part of the release video. And so I had made a snap decision, like a snap reaction, which was that I do feel like this, and this is what I said in those comments, I do feel like it's very pretty. It's very attractive, and I understand why one would be attracted to it. But because it's so neutral, I could make not just a vibe dupe, but I could probably actually make like a dupe palette of this just using singles because there's nothing extraordinary about it. It's just Natasha Denona's attempt to create like a perfect neutral, truly neutral palette, way more neutral than all of her others, which even the ones that seemed a little neutral always leaned a bit warm. So it is distinctive in that way. Like as a member of the range of Natasha Denona's palettes, it has distinction and it does stand apart to me for that reason because it is more to my taste than a lot of the other palettes that she's released, but it doesn't have anything distinctive about it. Like it doesn't have shades that I might not have in singles. And so I just feel like not only could I make all the looks that I would ever make with this palette using the shadows that I already have, but I could actually probably build a pretty good dupe. So I saw it and I was like, ooh, nice. But I didn't even have a single moment when I was like, maybe I'll buy that. I really want it. And I didn't even really feel like hungry or thirsty for it either because logic just cut that off at the pass. So that was my initial reaction. Then later, I had some time to go and like actually look at the palette, look at the listings, and I saw this stupid thing with the shade names. And now I have something much more important than any of that to say about it, which is what the actual butt was she thinking? And I say she, but you know, there's a whole team of people named this shade crease. This one kind of mid to light taupe named it crease, implying like in makeup language that that's the shade that goes in the crease of your eye. Why was there not someone on the team who was like, you know, different people use different colors in their crease depending on the shade of their skin and the look that they're going for. And yes, I know that then she was like, well, you can rearrange it and all of this stuff. But my impression is that she did that only after the palette had released and somebody pointed out to her, you're saying that your palette excludes a lot of people by naming a shadow after the place it's supposed to go on the eye and just choosing light skin as the standard for that. When I saw that and I thought about the implication and I literally imagined the people sitting in the boardroom making the decision to name it, and I imagined the absence of thought, like the absence of bone deep inclusivity that I would like to see in people who are making creative decisions. And I just thought about all those people sitting there together and I thought it was absent in all of them. Like the awareness of the necessity for inclusivity in that way was absent from that room entirely. When I thought about that, any taste that I had had for this palette, it's like it turned to sand in my mouth. And I was like, I don't want that in my house. Okay, the second launch that I have talked about before, but that I didn't have any information about, and then it launched, and then you guys were like, what do you think? Are you going to review it? Do you want it? It's Rare Beauty by Selena Gomez. I talked about this, I think, 2 new makeup releases and all my feelings about them ago. And I said that I was kind of hoping that it would be like Glossier comes to Sephora, sort of. And I feel like it's a little bit more like Fenty comes to Sephora. Like there's a lot about this range that echoes the way that the Fenty line was built, but it's like Fenty X Glossier comes to Sephora, right? It's a little bit of both. And I talked in that video about the fact that I am really interested in brands that are trying to kind of like follow in Glossier's footsteps in terms of the aesthetic that they promote. So I said I was going to be following the future career of this brand with great interest, and that I might be interested in reviewing it if it came out, in spite of the fact that I think that the name of the brand is like, let's just say this. Do you feel rare? Tell me about the last time you felt rare. So the reason that I feel like this is a little bit more in the direction of Fenty and a little bit less in the direction of Glossier than I expected is that she came out with a full-on foundation and a full-on concealer. It's none of this like sheer tint business. It's like a foundation and a concealer. I don't really wear foundation, and I already have a concealer combo that I absolutely love. And so I don't really shop around for that kind of thing. But I will say that I saw Mariah Leonard's review of this, and she said these exact words: if you only buy one thing from this range, then buy the foundation and the concealer. She was basically like, these are the standouts. And she liked a lot of the products. And that, for a hot second, did make me really want to buy them. And then I had to be like, Hannah, you do not wear foundation, and there cannot be a concealer better for you than the one you have. But she was saying that she felt like the formulas were really kind of innovative and just really, really melted into the skin and were really comfortable. And so, you know, I'm curious. I'm very curious about those products from this, because I do have that little soft spot for complexion products, because it's just fun to like make over your complexion and make it more even and make it dewy. I just know that in practical life, in real life, I just don't put on a full face of foundation ever, especially now that I'm not modeling for my clothing business anymore because we had to close it. That was what I have one bottle of foundation, and that was all that I used it for, and I haven't touched it since we stopped doing those photo shoots. So I'm not the person to review this foundation, not only because the chances are very slim that I would end up keeping the bottle, but because I don't know as much about foundation as a lot of people do. I don't really know what people want out of it because I just don't wear it and don't have that much experience with it. The concealer, I don't know. I'd like to try it at some point. I feel like I'm not doing a good job telling this story because I've just gotten stuck on the concealer and foundation. But here's what happened. It came out and I spent like 48 hours being like, should I review this? Should I review this? And like putting things in my cart and taking them out, thinking it would be my self-sponsored review for September. And then time passed, not that much time, like 24 hours. And so many people got it in PR. It was like they really did a huge campaign, like a huge push. There were tons of like full kits sent out, and all of these videos popped up with all of these beauty gurus doing it and doing like all the entire range, everything in the range. So the fact that there's already such a wealth of information and, you know, all of these swatches and a lot of people trying it on, all of that already on YouTube. And if I had ordered it, it would still probably not be here yet. And so my video would be, you know, much later than that. And I think if you're interested in it as a launch, you will probably have already watched all of those videos and made your decisions what you're going to do. So I was like, just in terms of practical timeline stuff, it isn't really a good choice for me. But I must confess that the other thing that was going on was that it was hard for me to really get it up about any one thing. Like, I like to review things that I would like to receive in PR for the purpose of review, because I think it would be entertaining and gratifying and useful to review them. But I'm not about to buy them for myself. That's the bridge that I'm trying to leap. That's the gap that I'm trying to bridge with the self-sponsored reviews. So in that way, it kind of would be a good fit. But I also like to at least be kind of excited about the thing, like at least kind of feel like I have a vested interest in it and I'm curious about it for personal reasons. And if I had been more interested in certain colors and textures and stuff, then I might have actually gone ahead and done a self-sponsored review about this. But I couldn't. It was like every single time I almost narrowed it down, something was keeping me from buying the thing. And I'll talk it through really quickly. I was like, if I'm going to do a self-sponsored review, I'm just going to get one of the lip products because I only have one set of lips, right? So the lip balm seems a little bit less like questionable. Like, it's pretty obvious what that is. It's just a tinted balm. So I was looking at the lip mousse, and there actually is a color that looks a lot like Faded Clementine from M Cosmetics. And the texture of the product seems a lot like the Infinite Lip Clouds from M Cosmetics. So there's that orangey one, and I was like, well, I'll choose that one. And then I kept looking at the packaging, and I kept thinking about the texture, and I just kept thinking, like, it just didn't feel exciting. It felt like she narrowed down so intensely, so closely on the thing that's like the perfect happy medium. Like it applies like a liquid lipstick, but it doesn't dry down. And it has these sort of slightly more dusky colors, but they're all pretty normal and like basic and in the middle. And it's like, you know, comfortable and matte and moussey, and it's just like it checks all of the boxes so much that it's like perfect in every way for what's exactly on trend right now. And in doing that and narrowing it down to exactly the point of the nexus of everything that has been done and will be done and is being done and that everyone's into, in doing that, it's like it lost that spark, that edge. It's like things can be too perfect. A lunch can be just like too on the nose, too perfect. And so it feels like it's become passé before it's even begun. And that's how I felt about these lip mousses. And I couldn't even bring myself to buy one for review. And then I looked at the blushes, and the color that I liked was in the matte formula, but the finish I liked was in the dewy formula. And it seems like they're very, very bright and strong. And the pinks are kind of like blue pinks, and the reds are kind of like red reds. And there wasn't a dusky one, there wasn't a nude. And also I'm starting to realize that my true passion is for cream blushes. I tend to like them more than liquid blushes. And so the fact that it's a liquid also kind of caused me to slow my roll. So I know that this has been like an extremely protracted and disorganized way of telling you how I feel about this launch. But I think that the short story is just that like it seems like something that I would be so excited to try and review. But when I look at the actual products, when it came down to actually picking the products and feeling excited and actually wanting to hold them in my hands and put them on my skin and talk about them in a video, I was honest with myself and I realized that I just actually didn't want to. I just didn't want to. And that means that as a consumer, I definitely didn't want to buy them because I have a budget. It's not really me buying it. It's like my channel buying it. And even with that budget sitting there, which I could have gone and spent on a handful of these products, I actually just didn't want to. So I'm really curious to know how you guys reacted to this launch and how you felt about it. And if you've tried any of the products at this point, do you think there's one that I should actually reconsider, that I would maybe really love? Because I could always buy one with my actual money and then just review it casually instead of doing a dedicated review. I think that the products that compel me the most are the liquid highlighter and the liquid blush. I just couldn't really settle on a color. Maybe the coral, the dewy coral one. It's like I think it's called Joy. That's like the one of the blushes that I kind of was okay with. Let me know, is it something to write home about or not? Okay, I'm throwing this in here just because it's so extra and I really love it, but I'm absolutely not gonna buy it. This Pat McGrath thing with the lip crystals, I just love it. If I were doing makeup for a different reason, like more editorial stuff, I'd be all over this. I mean, it's so fun. I love that there's this side of Pat McGrath where there's enough elbow room in the brand. Like she has license, she has resources to release something like this, like a completely cuckoo bananas limited edition thing that's so over the top and so enticing. And I would even go so far as to say kind of encourages regular people to spend some time doing art on their own faces and feeling their oats with like artistic and editorial makeup. I just think it's really cool. It would be fun to try to do something like this. It makes me want to do glitter. It makes me want to put glitter on my lips, or to mix some sort of like concoction of like maybe some like the Slay Fire biodegradable glitter that I have with some kind of liquid lip product, and just like makes me want to do stuff. Okay, it makes me want to do stuff to my lips. Oh, Soul Body. So I just wanted to mention this because I've seen a couple of people talk about this release. It's the Soul Body balms, the bronzing balms. Everything about this screams to me a shade inclusive version of that Chanel bronzer that everyone's obsessed with. And I thought that it was obvious. I thought it was just like crystal clear that that's what they were trying to do. They were like, let's come out with a dupe for that Chanel bronzer, but we'll do it across the entire range of what skin tones need for bronzing, because the ridiculousness of the Chanel one is that there's only one color, which, you know, I mean, the problem with that, the really egregious problem with that is that it excludes people with darker skin who have historically been disenfranchised and have not had access. But side note, it also excludes people like me who have really, really pale skin. So it's just like ridiculous to see things like that still floating around. And I felt like this was the ColourPop answer to that, or the Soul Body answer to that. But I haven't really seen anyone talking about that. It seems like people are like, oh, I wonder what it's like. It's a balm. It's a bronzing balm. That's so weird and unusual. And I'm like, is it? Because doesn't Chanel have a really famous one? It seems like that's what they were doing. So I kind of liked that when I saw it. I'm not over here like bronzing my body, and I don't really use bronzer. I don't really use these super mid-toned or slightly cool-toned bronzers on my face. But, you know, the lightest one does look like it could be kind of like a really subtle peachy blush on me, and I'm kind of interested in that. Not interested enough to buy it, just interested enough to talk about it in this video. Why did I want... Oh, I remember what I put this in here for. So I have the Hourglass thing that I want to talk about. And originally I wasn't going to talk about it because it's just kind of boring to me. I do think these are beautiful powders. I did. I had a blush that was a gift, and then I gave it to my sister because it was just a little bit pink for me. But it was one of those swirled ones, the ambient lighting highlighting blushes. They are so beautiful. I also just don't wear that many powders anymore. But for someone who likes powders, I mean, I completely understand why this ambient lighting blush and highlight and bronzer palette thing has become a cult classic, and that there are people who save up and buy it at the holidays or who buy it every year. I completely understand that. Just having used the powders and looking at this picture, it is beautiful. I think that my first impulse upon seeing this just now was to say that to me it just has no interest because it feels like they've been doing the same thing year after year after year. And also, you know, I don't particularly have an interest in it because I'm not really wearing powders that much right now. But it's also hard for me to understand why people would, because it's like, don't you already have one? Like, if you're the kind of bee who wants this, don't you already have it? And they also have been like releasing the literal same one like year after year after year. And I know that people haven't completely panned this between last Christmas and this Christmas. So it's just kind of like, I guess what I want to say is that they've been coming out with the same thing year after year. And this is the year when I'm like, you've taken it 1 year too far, Hourglass. Nobody would have been sad if you had really shaken up your game this year and done something different. There wouldn't really have been very many people over here like, oh no, they broke their streak of coming out with the same thing year after year. So I just feel like they're right on the edge of like maybe doing themselves dirty by not pushing forward a little bit and staying one step ahead of the consumer's expectations. But the reason I put this on here was not to say that, although now that I had that thought and I said it, you know, talk amongst yourselves, like, what do you think? But I put it here because I wanted to talk about holiday releases because they're starting to come out, and some of them are really aggressively holiday. Like, I put 4 here to talk about. The one from Dior, the not Dior show, but the Christian Dior, not Dior backstage, but like Christian Dior, like the actual Dior makeup, is very holiday. And I looked at this and I was like, first the new makeup releases and all my feelings, part of my brain was like, you know, interesting colors, texture, like I feel like they've kind of done something. It does seem very spot on, classy, very winter wonderland. Like you know, fine, they did a good job. I don't have anything very exciting to say about it. But then another part of my brain like reared its head and was like, holidays, like going to the mall and like walking through Nordstrom's and seeing this in person and buying presents for everyone and, you know, fake snow. And like there was just this nostalgia thing, like this holiday nostalgia. And also there's this ritual, like the part of my brain that loves ritual and craves ritual and returning to the same thing year after year and keeping tradition. You know, I mean, there's part of like the brain and body that really is grounded in that. And that's part of why we love holidays so much. And frankly, it's also part of why we love holiday releases so much, because after like the Hourglass thing, case in point, right? Like you remember it, there's like a muscle memory for it. And you're like, oh, I did this. This was so exciting last year. I felt this way last year. Last year, I just, you know, got joy out of this. It was so exciting. And so, you know, it brings up those feelings again. And then they kind of like cash in on that. And I mean, they do cash in on that, but I'm not saying this to like 100% besmirch everything about the nostalgia of the commercial side of Christmas, I guess is what I'm trying to say. I just think it's much more complicated than just being like, that bad, purity good, like, all commercial stuff bad, being devoid of feeling joy surrounding commercial stuff good. Like, it's not that simple. I think it is bad to let the nostalgia of the holidays and the craving for ritual trick you into spending way more than you should. Like, it's bad to let the love of that or the relief of those feelings cause you to just throw your no buy or your low buy or your budget out the window. You don't want to be in credit card debt in January because you love the holidays, right? So like, don't lose your head, right? So in that way, it's bad. But feelings are feelings. Like, good feelings are good, and joy is good, and feeling connected to something and connected to your past and remembering stuff and feeling nostalgic, like, it's not bad and wrong and dumb, but it is really complicated this year. And this is why I wanted to talk about it, because everything that these releases made me feel. So there's the Hourglass one. And again, I don't want that Hourglass palette. I don't particularly appreciate the fact that they're doing it again, but it makes me remember, right? It makes me think about this last 4 months of the year, especially the last 2 months of the year, which are upcoming, and how they traditionally feel. And so it's stirring up those feelings and thereby intertwining itself with those feelings, right? So I'm talking about those feelings. So there's that. There's the Dior Backstage. They're releasing another Backstage Glow Face palette and some other holiday stuff, and it does kind of look very holiday. And then there's the Sephora little minis sets that they're already starting to publicize, the fact that they're doing these favorite sets again. And to me, that's a very holiday feeling thing. Like, they give me some more lip, the, Sephora favorites, like those kinds of things. It makes me think of holidays past. Holidays when I bought one of these or got one as a gift. I don't think I ever got one as a gift, but I did buy one, and I bought some of them as gifts for other people, or like bought them and gave the little parts as gifts for other people. And it makes me feel like tidings of comfort and joy are being foregrounded. So it's weird because it's just going to be different, right? Like, I don't think I'm going to be able to go home. This will be the first Christmas in my life, I think. I mean, I don't know I'm not totally sure of this, but I'm guessing that I probably won't be wanting to travel around the holidays this year because of the pandemic. And if that's the case, it'll be the first Christmas in my life that I have not spent with my family members. And I'm already preparing myself to like process that. And weirdly, these makeup releases are like the first, they're the first bells tolling that are making me think about it and realize that I need to potentially prepare for that. And then all of the other more commercial consumerist stuff that it triggers in me, like, the excitement of like going to the mall and buying presents for people and feeling like a little Santa Claus and like, figuring out what people want, getting them treats and surprising them and all of that stuff. It's not that I won't be able to give any gifts or surprise any people during this holiday season, but it's just not going to look like that. It's not going to look and feel like it did. And I just wanted to say that. I feel like that was actually a significant aspect of my browsing new makeup releases this week. I want to say it in case it's happening to you so that you know that you're not alone, and also in case it's happening to you but like subconsciously, because I think that sometimes these things happen. We feel these feelings and we sort of think these thoughts, but they never make it into the prefrontal cortex. Like, they don't make it out in front of you so that you can look at them. And that's a really important part of figuring out what you need to do to self-soothe and to be strong and to be your best self, is like getting that stuff out of the back of your brain and out in front of you and holding it out and looking at it. So that's why I wanted to bring it up, in case that does a service to you. We can look at it together. Maybe we can talk about it a little bit together in the comments. And that is it. That is all that I wanted to say about new makeup releases. Those are all of my feelings, some real feelings, right? My feelings were not just like purple, no, taupe, yes. My feelings were like feelings today. And I would like to know all of your feelings. So let's chat. Thank you for watching this video. And don't forget to take extra good care of yourself this week so that you can be the most effective version of yourself as you do your work in the world.